Joining me now, Congressman Morgan Griffith, Republican from the 9th District of Virginia. That's from Salem, Southwest Virginia. Congressman, great to have you, sir.
It's good to be with you.
A lot of hand-wringing on the PPP plan, Paycheck Protection Program, that people say it's not working. They haven't gotten their money. We applied for it on Friday. We got an email from our banker last night, late, 8 o'clock, said that our loan had been approved. They were working on funding and closing documents in the next day or so. So that would have been for us under a week. And I've talked to other now business owners who are starting to get a response from their bank. So it seems to be working. But now we're hearing that Congress is saying, well, it might run out of money before everyone can take advantage of it. So there might have to be another stimulus package. Are you able to respond to that at all?
Yeah, I can, and it is something that we didn't anticipate on March 27th. But I think I said it on your show last week or sometime recently that, when that money ran out, we would have to replenish it. Mm-hmm. So the president has proposed, I think along with leadership in both houses, a bill that just simply says we're not going in and do anything else. We're just going to put more money into that program. Because what happened, and everything's moving so fast, it's hard for people to remember, and we're all watching it day by day. But it was only on March 27th we passed the bill that had been negotiated and passed in the Senate the day before. In the meantime, everything shut down. At that point, we were on kind of a partial, schools weren't in, but most stores were open, and restaurants were trying to be cautious, but they were open. Now everything's closed. That means the PPP, the requests and the people who need it have gone up. And so we need to replenish that money, and we're going to do that. The question is how. The Senate is supposed to take it up tomorrow on a unanimous consent or voice vote. And then the House is supposed to take it up on Friday. We'll see what happens. But that's just, it doesn't change any other programs. It doesn't do anything except it puts more money into that pot because our idea is the economy's going to come back. There will be some money lost. I was telling somebody the other day that, the restaurant that sells tea, Coke, mixed drinks, et cetera, those sales are probably gone. They're selling a lot of food. People are going, and getting the drive-by, order it and go by and pick it up kind of thing. But they're not going to get that drink money back. That's gone. But what we're trying to do is to make sure that businesses can stay open, keep the doors open, and when we get through this, the economy will come back strong. People buying furniture will go out in the first month and buy that furniture that they've been waiting to purchase. People will probably, 8 million of the 8.3 million or whatever it is in Virginia will go out to eat in the first weekend that we're out of this. So things will come back, but you got to keep your doors open. Mm-hmm. And that's what PPP is for, is to help businesses keep their doors open when we get through this so the economy can come roaring back. That's the concept. It's a good concept. Is it new and innovative? Yes, it is. I got to tell you, I wish most government programs ran the way this PPP is. That doesn't mean it's perfect. We got some glitches we're trying to sort out with, banks who may not want to participate. We're hearing some of that, although most of that got fixed last week. But you stop and think about it. We passed a bill on March 27th, and your loan was approved on April 7th. Mm-hmm. That's a fast turnaround for the federal government.
It's a tremendous turnaround, and let's be real. I mean, I don't know what people's expectations were that they were going to apply on Friday and get money in their account on Monday. I mean, that's just no operation works that way, right? But I think, doing this, it's been a pretty seamless process for us. I mean, I've had, small business organizations on, like Alfredo Ortiz and Job Creators Network, that help craft this with the Secretary of Treasury. It was a one-page app. You had a worksheet behind it. And, you have to supply a lot of documents like any loan because it is even though it's forgivable, I mean, it is a loan. You have to sign it, and you have to provide all the backup documents. But if you own a small business, you have all those. I mean, that's what somebody was complaining. Some reporter was asking about, well, all the documents you have to provide. It's like, well, you're an imbecile because you don't run a business. If you run a business, you have all that. Otherwise, you couldn't run a business. But we have media people that are just complete imbeciles that go to that press conference and ask the stupidest questions imaginable because they have no experience in anything. Obviously, you have the documents, but And look, you asked for 350 billion. You didn't know if you needed 200 billion or 500 billion. So you asked for 350. You got that. When the money runs out, obviously it can be replenished. So that makes sense. So, look, I come from the angle of reality. Having gone through it, I would say that for me, it has exceeded every expectation I've had. I think it is the key linchpin program you have to keep businesses afloat through the end of April. The problem, Congressman, is what do we do in May? That becomes the issue. And I was hoping you would share us your thoughts on what we do at the end of April.
Well, I think we have to. It's a fluid situation. I think we have to play it by ear. We've seen different projections. Some projections say we'll be over the crest by the end of April. How much longer do we keep things closed down to make sure we don't get a second bounce on this thing, as has happened in the past in some areas, in previous pandemics? We're just going to have to play it by ear. I don't want look all this. It's not free money. It's going to come out of the taxpayers' pockets at some point. What we're hoping is to keep the American businesses going so we don't have a terrible, much worse than current economic situation. And I believe that with the base economy that the Trump administration had put in place, that when we get through this, we'll come back strong. But we have to get through it. We have to make sure we do that the most effective way, and I think we're just going to have to pay attention to what the data is showing us in another week or another 2 weeks. Just like we thought there was enough money on March 27th, but there clearly wasn't. We're replenishing that fund. I'm hopeful that we'll find by, April 27th that we've turned the corner and that we can start making plans for late May, early June. And if that's the case, then we can pass bills and do what's necessary to keep the economy up and running until we get to that point where we can start reopening businesses and move forward. And that's my hope, but I would be terribly remiss. Nobody has that magic crystal ball sitting on the table. If I were to say this is what we're going to do at the end of April, because I could not have predicted what we were going to do at the beginning of March by what we did at the end of March. And I don't know that I can predict now what we're going to do at the end of April.
I don't think the country can make it through May if this complete production and economic shutdown continues. And what I've been asking everybody who's come on my show in a position of political authority, you being one of them, is what is the April 30th metric? What's the metric? We were told shut down production, stop the economy, which is going to be by the end of April, 25 million people out of work. The reason we were going to do that is flatten the curve. And the reason we were flattening the curve was to not overrun our healthcare system, where we had too few beds, too many people that needed ventilators and ICU beds. Americans don't want to be in the position of choosing between two people who gets one bed. We don't want to be in that position. So everybody said, okay, we're going to suffer through the pain. We understand that, flatten the curve so the health system's not overrun. Okay, as of now, it's not being overrun. The projections as of now say it's not going to be overrun, right? So nobody is giving the American people, including the White House and Fauci and Birx, none of them is saying, what is the metric where we can get back to work? What is it? Fauci says, well, when there's no deaths and there's nobody catching the virus. That'll happen when? That'll happen in the second coming of Jesus Christ, or that'll happen in the rapture. I mean, that's an asinine thing to say. We have to be told. What are you going to say? The government's going to say, okay, curve is flattened. We have enough beds. People are still going to get sick and die. We're going to have to wash our hands. But we got to get back to work. What is that?
Well, and I don't know that I can give you that metric at this point. I want to make sure I listen to all the scientists. One of the things that I want to look at is what's going on in Spain and Italy. Spain's deaths were dropping, and then they spiked back up yesterday. They went back up. So what we want to do is see why did it go back up and what are they doing? I think we have to look at this virus and see what it's doing in other parts of the world where it hit earlier so that we can determine what we're doing. But at some point, we've bent the curve. We need to get people back to work. But we need to be careful. We need to wash our hands and wear a few more face masks mainly protects other people from yourself if you're a carrier by it and don't know it. But we have to do that, and where is that number? I don't know yet. I will probably come to a determination at some point, but we have to clearly have crested, and we're not there yet. According to all the projections, it'll be late April for Virginia. And then I do think we have to take a look at it from a regional standpoint. I mean, some areas may have crested and be down, and if you limit some of the travel, those areas may be able to reopen before others. I suspect that we're going to get hit late in Southwest Virginia. We have, most counties now have at least one case. But I worry that, it'll suddenly start to take off in the rural counties. I want to keep an eye on that. But if it's already passed through Northern Virginia and Eastern Virginia, just as I said when I thought we closed the schools a little early for Southwest Virginia, well, we probably ought to reopen them even if it still hasn't crested in Southwest Virginia.
Why?
Eastern Virginia and Northern Virginia, it should be more of a regional approach instead of, an entire state when the data is going to be different. It's already different in the various regions of the state.
Mm-hmm. All right, so the question becomes getting to this, I guess we're talking about now a phase 5 or phase 4. I've kind of lost track of it.
We'll be talking about phase 4 unless you count the replenishment as phase 4, which I do not.
Okay, so we're talking about a phase 4 package. By the way, we're with Republican Congressman Morgan Griffith. He's from the 9th District of Virginia. That's the Southwest Virginia area. So, Congressman, we're talking about a phase 4 package. It's and I got to tell you, it's very tough to listen to Schumer, Pelosi, and the Democrats talk about new Green Deals and transportation infrastructure and all this other stuff that they're trying to jam into this thing. I think I read yesterday, $25,000 apiece for people that are still working for grocery stores and in the service industry. The suspicion is here that things that have nothing to do with the virus, nothing to do with people are hurting, get jammed into another $1 trillion, $2 trillion bill in order to move along personal political agendas, like when they put in $50 million for NPR, $25 million for the Kennedy Center. I go on and on and on. I mean, it's elections have consequences. Pelosi's a speaker. How do you manage that?
Well, I think we have to take a look at it, and we have to, again, figure out where we're at. Do we need a full phase 4 bill? And if they load it up, we're going to have to vote no. And that's the issue that we're trying to avoid. They will try to load it up if we act like, we're just going to vote for whatever they put forward.
Like you had to the first time.
I'm going to pay. Well, our leadership, to their credit, got a lot of that stuff that Nancy Pelosi wanted out of there. The House and the Senate and the President all worked together to say, no, we're not doing that. Some of it was in there. But compared with what she wanted in her version of the bill, they didn't get a whole lot. There was wasted money, but it wasn't as bad as it might have been. So we'll just have to take a look at it and try to figure out where we're at. But I will tell you that and again, this gets to where if we've crested nationally and in most of Virginia, then, it's going to be a whole lot easier to vote no. So, we'll be wearing the masks and doing the social distancing, and hopefully we'll get that done.
Congressman, let's shift gears over to the World Health Organization. The president yesterday questioning why we're funding them. We provide them with more money than any other country in the world. And he's now saying that he's considering suspending that. Do you have a position on that?
Well, I think he's right to be frustrated with the way that they're looking at China and haven't really pushed China to get real numbers, because that's the first place it hit, and the rest of the world could definitely use that information. There's no question they could use that information. And so I understand the president's frustration. I don't know that we ought to pull out completely, but we probably ought to make some point about it, because if you trust the Chinese, you're just foolish. I mean, I can remember, it's part of their culture. I can remember I went over there, it's been 20-plus years ago, and we were told at the time, I was in the House of Delegates, and we were told at the time to be prepared for the big lie they're going to tell you some big lie. So we were out in the countryside, and they were burning the fields.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to him, I said, well, why do you burn them? I was just curious. Why do you burn them? Why don't you plow under the former vegetation and let it, create more nutrients for the soil?
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, that equipment was only invented a few years ago, and we haven't gotten our allotment in this province yet. Well, that equipment's been around since the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the big lie, and so we were taught to say, "Oh, okay." But I knew that was the big lie. Mm-hmm. The fact that they're telling us, I believe, the big lie now that they haven't had deaths. Pay no attention to the urns stacked up outside the crematoriums. Mm-hmm. Pay no attention to the fact that I've seen an article that said there's actually, they're paying people not to say anything about deaths in their family. Their deaths are a lot higher. But the data on how the virus has spread and when it peaks and that kind of stuff would be invaluable to the rest of the world. So if the WHO is not going to go in there and get us real data, then the president's right to question whether or not they should be receiving full funding from the United States.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, the money that we spend on things that actually harm us, like the WHO, is incredible. Hey, Congressman, I know you were busy today. You had to squeeze us in. I really appreciate your time today. This is a very trying time for a lot of people. A lot of my listeners are small business owners, or they've been laid off. They're concerned. They're concerned about their future, providing for their family, how they're going to go forward. Having you on with us every week and sharing your thoughts on how we go forward and come out of it is very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day and stay safe.